you for joining us today. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and our topic today, social media, particularly Twitter. Is this the way we'll elect our next president? Is this, in fact, the way we gain equality for Black America? With us to shed some light on this powerful force is esteemed journalist Marcus Mabry. He's the managing editor of Twitter Moments. Twitter now has 1.3 billion registered members. Some 320 million people sign on monthly, actively using their Twitter accounts. That's a huge number of people. And a huge percentage of those people are Black Americans and Blacks worldwide. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's an honor to be here, Carl. Thank you for having me.
I always start, we're going to talk about social media and our presidents, et cetera, and our equality. But I always start by asking our guests about their personal lives. So sort of place yourself in Black America. Where did you come from, and who are your greatest influences?
So I am a poor black boy from Trenton, New Jersey, born in 1967. I was ecstatic to read in Isabel Wilkinson's book that I, in fact, are part of the Great Migration. 1967, ended 1968, according to her book, The Warmth of Other Suns.
Right.
So I was so excited to feel like I'm a part of this amazing movement of Black people in this country, from the South to the North. And I was literally one of those people because my mom was a 17-year-old high school student, got pregnant by her high school boyfriend when she was 17 in West Palm Beach, Florida, and they moved to Trenton, New Jersey while she was pregnant.
Right.
And so my brother and I were raised by, my mom was a single mom in poverty, in and out of on and off welfare in some housing projects while we were growing up in Trenton, New Jersey. And, you know, we spent 1 year. Mom was is an amazingly resourceful woman. And so she, 1 year we were here in New York City. And so I went to PS40. We lived in Stuyvesant Town for 1 year, PS40, second grade.
No doubt the great influence in your life, educational.
Well,
I'm kidding.
yes. Well, when I went back to New Jersey after 1 year in New York City, I was advanced.
Yeah.
And so I was putting all kind of gifted and talented stuff. Right. Mom really believed in education. So she pushed us to believe that there were no boundaries for anything we could accomplish. We were poor, but that didn't matter. We were Black in a country where it was often hard to be African American, and that didn't matter either, she told us. And one of my influences, amongst the many African American influences, was you. Because when I was in second grade in New York here, there were very few of us that I saw on television. You were one of them.
And you were watching, I know, I see so many of you accomplish. Apparently your mother's plunked you in front of the TV set.
All the time.
I was your babysitter. Yes, I have a lot.
It was a very different era. We spent a lot of time together.
A lot of people. And I, in fact, went to PS 140, which was in Queens, right? So, you know, PS 40 is a good place to, but now, this story of your family, which is so interesting. You write in your book, Black Eyed Peas and White Bucks, right? Growing up Black and White America, which is a powerful book. You were only how old when you wrote that book?
I was somewhat embarrassing. I was 24 when I started to write that book.
24.
28 when it came out.
Right, and so you tell the story of reuniting with your father, who did not acknowledge your existence for most of your young life. You were in your 20s, apparently, when you met him, and wrote about that in the book. What I want to ask you, what you would say to that 24-year-old now? What advice, what reflection, contemplation, difference? What would you have done differently about that book?
I don't think I could have written a different book.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have. What I would tell a 24-year-old for life lessons is I'd say, enjoy this. Because I am so very blessed. I'm very blessed for many, many reasons. And one reason I'm incredibly blessed is because I'm an out gay man. And so my partner and I, you know, we have two beautiful children.
They are indeed.
Thank you. Two 6-year-old twin boys.
Right.
And when I was 24, I couldn't have known that was even possible then. I didn't know. I came out because I had to come out. For many years, like many LGBT people, I denied even to myself who I was. And then finally, I just couldn't stand it anymore. I had to be honest. And I always wanted to be a dad, so I thought I would never get to be a dad for that, if I came out. Well, I was totally wrong. And so I would have told that 24-year-old, don't worry, it's all going to be fine.
It'll be fine, despite the rough beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which would, despite a world I could not imagine today, an African-American president, LGBT people everywhere. My children growing up in an LGBT family proudly so and happily so, with an African American president. These are things all things that I could not have imagined as a 24-year-old.
That's what you would have said. But now the arc of your life is that after PS40, you actually wound up at Lawrenceville, one of the most prestigious boarding schools in the world.
Yes.
And that then led you to Stanford and the Sorbonne, and your work as a journalist at Newsweek and the New York Times before you reached Twitter. So that must have seemed like a rush of wind to you.
It was an amazing process. And it's funny because when you're going through it, you're not even really aware of it. So I sit on the board of a program called the Oliver Scholars Program, and we do exactly what happened to me. We recruit African American and Latino students from New York City public schools who are very bright students, and we help them apply to independent schools, including Lawrenceville and Exeter and Andover, and the New York City day schools, Collegiate, Brearley, Spence, all those schools. And like me, most of these kids are poor. Many of them are immigrants or parents who don't speak English very well. But they go through every day. I went through when I was their age, this transformative experience of going from our communities to these communities of access and privilege and great wealth, in which we are very, very different from the majority of the students there. But that is an incredibly empowering and transformative experience. Even if it has its challenges, there's no question about it. But what you realize, and what I realized in writing my book, even at 24, and talking to all of my friends and my peers from my time at Lawrenceville, was that you may have particular issues because you're of color and from a poorer background than most of the people at these schools that cost $60,000 or $70,000 a year for high school. But they're all teenagers. They're all going through stuff.
They're all mad, just like you.
They're all mad and lost and confused and want to be one
Right.
person one day and someone
Right.
else the next day.
But the one thing you must admit that it did in your case was that it separated you from your family, because you became a different kind of person. Now you've been able to pull all of those pieces together, but it did make you a different person, unable to really fit in your own environment anymore.
Absolutely, sure. I do talk about it in terms of having this ability to move between worlds. So on the one hand, I didn't fit at home anymore in the way I used to, but on another hand, I could still go to those communities, and then I could be at home in a poor black community because I grew up in one. And so as a reporter, as a journalist, I could go anywhere in the world, and I can go to a rich, white, elite community and be at home there because that's what Lawrenceville was. And so I can go to the Quai d'Orsay, which is the French Foreign Ministry, and sit there for breakfast with the French Foreign Minister, talking about relations between France and Africa and France and the U.S. in French. Because I got all this from Lawrenceville,
Right.
from my mother's sense of you can be anything you want to be.
Right, right.
And so that's kind of an extraordinary ability to translate and move between universes that very few people have. And those of us who grow up in these communities where we actually have to reach beyond ourselves, reach beyond our origins, and which definitely makes it harder sometimes to come home because you don't fit in the same way you did before.
Right.
At the same time, we have this ability to be polyvalent and move between worlds, which in our increasingly shrinking and connected world is more and more important than ever to reach across cultural boundaries and others.
So you had this wonderful career, still having it now in social media, in the new digital world, but at the New York Times and at Newsweek, based in foreign countries and reporting back.
Paris, Johannesburg, London.
Right. And you got the opportunity to write. I want to know how this came about. The Condoleezza Rice biography, twice as good. The Condoleezza Rice and the Path to Power. How did that come about? Very briefly, because I do want to read a little bit of this.
It is really thanks to my phenomenal agent, Charlotte Sheedy.
Who is my agent as well. Totally by coincidence, by the way.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know? Right.
I didn't know. Who's an amazing
She is
woman.
wonderful. She is wonderful.
An amazing pioneer herself. And certainly for black writers and our voices. Charlotte suggested it to me. And when she said, I said, I literally gasped.
Yes.
Because Condoleezza Rice is an African-American woman from Birmingham, from the Deep South, taught at Stanford, was provost at Stanford, which is the kind of number 2 in charge at Stanford, taught Soviet studies. I was conceived in the South, first Northerner born in my family. I went to Stanford. I studied Soviet politics.
Right.
And so I
Came
found
to a
myself.
slightly different conclusion, perhaps. I don't know. Or
well,
no
we're
conclusion because you were a reporter.
Exactly, we're
Or
still evolving. We're all still evolving. But I didn't. I found myself. I covered the State Department before she was there, and then, but under another Republican Secretary of State, and then it was abroad. And I had come back to America after being overseas for a long time and dealing with American foreign policy issues. And she was at that point George W. Bush's most articulate by far and most convincing surrogate. She was, and this is when Bush was in office his first term. And I said, when Charlotte said this to me, I was like, oh, of course I have to write that book. And I have to write that book because I want to understand Condoleezza
exactly.
Rice. Because where she came from and where she ended up,
Right.
not many little black girls who grew up in Birmingham, when it was called Bombingham, ended up becoming a Republican president's most powerful spokesperson.
Right. Well, I was so struck by one of your conclusions after having done all of this really extensive, deep research with her entire...
Spent a lot of time with her and her great aunt.
Right, her entire life.
stepmom.
And then in the end you said there's something about achievement and people reaching a certain status in life. And in some ways she did it, but it didn't work. I mean, it didn't have any other wider rippling effect, and that somehow she had failed after all of that. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I talk about it, and this was actually, I wrote the book before I had kids of my own, and I have two boys, I don't have daughters, but the question I asked at the end of the book, and I still wonder about it today, and I think each of us has to answer it for him or herself differently, for ourselves rather. She's definitely succeeded. She's an historic figure, but there was a cost to that. She exceeded. One of the reasons she succeeded was because even though she was a middle-class black girl from Birmingham, growing up in the heart of when that city was being destroyed, she knew one of the girls who was killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church assassination.
Right.
Yet she believed she could be president of the United States. Growing up in the middle of this horror, this civil rights strife in America, she believed she could do whatever she wanted. Her parents had told her that.
Hey, well, you know, the recent conversation is that perhaps she should be drafted to
Well, one thing I talk about in the book is
to take over, to save the Republican Party now.
for the next 20 years, they will come to her every campaign, as Mitt Romney did.
Right.
And they will ask her if she at least is interested in being vice president.
Right.
Mitt Romney did it.
Right.
And
So-
they will. But on the one
Yeah.
hand, this is success because she's accomplished what she's accomplished no one else has. At the same time, what was lost in her kind of still-mindedness, her single-mindedness, her still will to accomplish and to achieve was, as you mentioned kind of at the beginning about my own situation, going to prep school and coming home, was this kind of isolation, this disconnect that has to happen. You have to disconnect from trauma as a child in the middle of Birmingham. She had to do that.
Right.
But in that disconnecting and that coming to herself and convincing herself that her will was all that mattered, she also took in this belief, this ideology, that was true for everyone. So what comes with that is she, at Stanford as provost, she did a great deal for African American faculty and graduate students. It was all under the surface. It was all behind the scenes. I talk about it in there. I talk about all the faculty who told me what she did to make sure black people got tenure at Stanford, which is extraordinary.
Right.
Never, ever, ever in the day of light of day. And if it was exposed, and once it was, she denied it. This is how she used power. And she has a great empathy for African Americans, which is why I called the book Twice as Good. That's a black thing.
Yes, I know. You have to be twice as good in order to sit. But I want to ask you quickly, because we have to. I do want to talk about Twitter. But you dedicated to your nieces, saying that you hope that they would never, that it wouldn't be the case that they would always have to be twice as good. What do you think now?
Right.
You wrote this book
we're not-
in 2007.
We're not there. They still
not
they
there.
still have to be twice as good.
Okay.
They still have to be twice as good.
All right. So now you're absolutely twice or four times as good. Here you are in this really high position, having had all of these fantastic jobs and performed so well in media. Twitter Moments. Talk to us about that and about this huge effect of Twitter on everything.
So I'm the managing editor of Twitter Moments, and what Twitter Moments is, it is basically Twitter is this extraordinary platform where anyone in the world can talk to anyone in the world. It is amazing. It has changed realities in countries like Egypt, It's changed reality on the ground. We think of Black Lives Matter here in the U.S. But what Twitter Moments is we are taking all that awesome stuff on Twitter and we're making it accessible and understandable and comprehensible to anyone who wants to. So if you're intimidated by social media, come to Twitter, click on the little lightning bolt where Twitter Moments is, and you'll be very familiar with the experience. We'll take the best on Twitter and make it into stories that you can easily swipe through.
And in fact, you answer the question just that so many of my friends who are not in social media say, why would I go to Twitter? What's the purpose?
Everything happens on Twitter, and it happens on Twitter first.
Right, and you're actually curating stories in your old news hound sense, that will.
It's no different from the New York Times. And as I lead a team of journalists who are taking the very best stuff from Twitter, the most important stuff, and making stories out of those tweets.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about electing the president of the United States.
We're doing that again right now.
We're doing it again now. Where Twitter, now other social media very powerful, but Twitter seems to be the place where serious things are said. President Obama now has like 71 million followers. I think 139 of the world leaders all have Twitter accounts and talk to their constituents
Everyone
this way.
from presidents to dictators communicate to the world and to their own people on Twitter. That's an extraordinary thing. And the Pope.
So it's happening. We have a recent example of President Obama's use. He's usually not doing this kind of thing on Twitter, but he did do this on Twitter. Let's take a look at this. Lin-Manuel Miranda, creator of Hamilton and the President of the United States.
This is some serious business right here.
Are we in the Rose Garden right now?
We are. This is the Rose Garden right here. It must be a little nerve-wracking. I hope I don't drop these cards.
Are you ready, guys?
You ready? We're getting the cue?
All set.
All right. Drop the beat.
He's throwing up some words. I'm gonna say some freestyling that you never heard. Constitution, the POTUS. I'm freestyling, you know this. Obamacare, okay, I'm looking up because it was hopeless before you enacted that system. The Federalist Papers, Hamilton wrote the other 51 and greater. And Sonny and Bo is canine. It's insane, asinine. Oh my God, I'm freestyling down the line. And NASA, I wanna see if we can get over to Mars and rap more bars. I spit bars and leave a carbon footprint on it and lower my emissions. And this is Lin-Manuel freestyling in Congress. This is transmission. I hope in Congress works to our agenda. Innovation's important. You really gotta send to yourself and create something. We need a new justice for the Supreme Court. In short, oh my gosh, this is my book report. And immigrants, we get the job done. This is so fun. POTUS is holding up the signs. I'm not done. It's the Oval Office. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm there. It's so much more intimidating than if it was square. Opportunity knocks and I can't stop. I'm here with the president and my pops. And yo, the mic drops.
How good is that? You think that's going viral? That's going viral.
I did not see those words prior.
Never before.
And
Never
indeed,
before.
the mic dropped.
Never before.
To use that. We're going to show Michelle Obama, too, because one of the reasons that social media has become so important is that a lot of people don't read, they don't watch the news, and Michelle Obama, in her position at the White House, has used this to connect with people. Let's take a quick look at that, and then I want to talk about Black Twitter, which is huge.
I think that's really changed the nature of the communication. I think it changed the nature of politics. Do you see that? Has it changed how you approach being First Lady at all?
It definitely, what we learned is that we have to be nimble. You can't sort of be stuck in the way things were done or in the way we did things even in the first term, because the social media platforms are ever changing and you've got to be ready to move and shift with them. My whole goal, the question that I ask myself, that our team, we ask ourselves, is what's going to work? What's going to move the needle? What's going to change the conversation? Because what we talked about even coming in was that we don't want to be an administration, a presidency that's just into meaningless slogans. We want to do things that are actually going to change people's lives. And the only way to do that is to constantly make those shifts so that the message is getting directly to the people that you're trying to reach. And if that means Vine, all right, let's bring some of the VIVers in here and let's do some fun stuff with them, if that's what young people are listening to. If we want to get more people into the White House and have them access the People's House, well, then let's use virtual videos to open up these tours so that millions of people who can never come and see these rooms have the opportunity to do it. That's the beauty of this administration. We have all of these wonderful tools to just open things up more and more.
So not only electing officials, but governance by social media. And there is this thing called Black Twitter, which is huge. I mean, some of the numbers that I read is that a quarter of the Twitter readership, usership is Black. And Black Twitter is a thing where people are communicating. Yeah, almost in the old, I want to say, like the drums used to be,
That's right.
People are beating the drums on Twitter.
Well, it's interesting, right? That's a great analogy, actually, because what were the drums? The drums were a means of communication, right? So who owned the drums? Well, whoever had the drums. Anyone could have the drum, right? This is the difference between Twitter as a platform for communicating and, say, a newspaper, a traditional newspaper. The means of production or the means of communication in this sense are not usually in the hands of African Americans. But when it comes to Twitter, we're there. We are Twitter. And that means a great deal. That means we can communicate directly to one another, which is why Black Twitter was even before the hashtag Black Lives Matters movement and this kind of revolt against the violence that was happening on our community, often by people in uniform. Even before that, Black Twitter existed. There was a community online of Black people talking directly to Black people. And you can't do that through a newspaper. You can do that through Twitter.
And the Black Lives Matter hashtag, Oscars So White hashtag, I mean, these caught fire and infiltrated the entire social conversation, black, white, brown, whatever, in America. And what kind of responsibility do you feel that you've provided this force to be used in any kind of way, even negatively, as some people do?
I think most importantly, empowering people. There's responsibility that comes with it, but empowerment is such a very precious thing. If you can empower people who were previously voiceless, I can't even find a downside to it, The empowerment of people to actually to affect change. Without Twitter, I'm not quite sure we'd see the changes we're seeing in legislation, in people who are elected. We think probably in the prosecutors' re-elections in Chicago and in Cleveland. This is all because of this movement that happened and gained ground and stayed alive on this platform. So I can't see a downside to that.
Now, and talk to me a little bit about, we know that there's Black Twitter and there's such a huge percentage of the users. What about within Twitter itself in terms of executives? You're there, thank goodness. Do you have a lot of company? Because people are always complaining about the fact that while we're users of social media, we're not a part of the management and ownership and creation, et cetera.
There is a lot of work to do at Twitter and throughout tech. And it's one of the reasons I came to Twitter, which is I think it's so important that we're at the table. It was true at the New York Times, too. And unfortunately, I felt a little bit like, well, I can't have one less of us at the table at the New York Times to go to Twitter, but can't be
Marcus,
everywhere.
you have to,
So,
well, you're doing your job by going from place to place, and presenting your credentials and your great skills.
But we have to make more of us. We have to create more of us. And not just African American, but also Latino and Hispanics who are very much also underrepresented in technology and at Twitter. And Twitter's, I'm convinced our current leadership is committed to improving that diversity, but there's a lot of work to do. We have to do it every single day.
And how
it's
does
got to
it
be a
get-
corporate priority.
How does it get done? Do we use social media to
Social media helps. but-
aim our attention to hiring, to
Absolutely.
venture
absolutely.
capitalists, giving
Absolutely.
inventors money and
And education, all those things plus education, and providing an example to those who are coming up now that you can be here, you can do this, and we need you here, and we need you doing this.
Okay, well, I always close the show. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry that we have to do this because I could talk to you forever, and I'll talk to you after this. But I ask the question: the power, the strength of Black America lies in what? What's your thinking, your thought about that?
My thought is two. Number one, I want to say in our determination, which is also the same as our resilience. In face of great odds, we've come through, we've persevered. And it's not easy even today. After having an African-American president, that hasn't changed all that at all. So I think our resilience and our perseverance. But my second answer is going to be in the power of our mothers, which is,
That's great.
I think very real.
Right, even yes, because your mother and your grandmother were so influential in your life.
Absolutely.
Right, and you're optimistic about Black America?
I am cautiously optimistic. It's hard. We are increasingly, as a community, divided. We're divided between an affluent and well-off community and a less well-off community. My fear is that we've gone from, because when I was growing up in Trenton, they're talking about the black underclass. I'm afraid that we're going from a underclass to an undercaste. That's getting even harder. And that's just not, the reason we're seeing this Bernie Sanders success on the left and Trump success on the right is because people feel like they are not able to get out anymore from whatever class they're in. They can't aspire anymore. And in America, it's all about aspiring. It's about feeling you can change your circumstances. So whether black or not African American, there are more and more people who feel like they can't break out of the caste they're in. I think as a community, it's incumbent upon us to work really, really hard to make sure that those who are still where I came from don't feel like we've forgotten them or they're left behind.
Okay, well, that's a great note to end our broadcast on. I thank you so much, Marcus Maitrig, for
Thank you for having me. It was a great honor.
For the work that you're doing, and the journalistic work, and now this empowerment work on Twitter as the editor in chief of Twitter Moments. Go there and get your news curated for you. Thank you so much, Marcus.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you here. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and we will see you the next time.